remember me. My name is Maybe I don't give a shit. Maybe I don't remember the last time I blew my nose.
Either. That's hard.
Yo.
What up, Fame?
Hate on my success. Mad cause I wanted more. Feel like Scarface on the phone with Sosa. You wanna war?
You wanna go to war?
Pop shit, I pop clips and have you lying on the floor.
Okay. Let's talk about Phamous for a brief second, okay? Actually, well, this entire video is going to be about Phamous. Fame, what up? Y'all wanted me to do some review type shit for aspiring artists, up-and-coming artists. So, Fame is somebody I've been watching for quite a while. I've listened to a lot of his music. I first found out about him, maybe he commented on my channel, I'm not sure, but this is years ago. And this was the song that did it for me. It was this one. I'm what the world needs now. And I was like, yeah, you right, nigga. You know what I'm saying? We needed that, because rap is trash. So this is the first time I heard the dude. And I was like, okay. I didn't think the song was necessarily great. I have my issues with it. You know what I mean? But it starts out good, no doubt. I wonder who made this beat, now that I think about it. What the world needs now.
I'm what the world needs now. I'm what the world needs now.
I'm what the world needs now.
Yo, pretty guy. Niggas mistake me for a clown as Pennywise, or the joke I'm pretty wise. Duffel bag, boy, with 2 chains on like the titty guy.
Okay.
Dum-dums, I let dum-dums out the city fly. My young guns.
So here's my problem. So I'm listening to Phamous, right? There's some issues I've had with Phamous's music personally that I feel like have carried on pretty much all the projects. And I've listened to a lot of songs from Fame. So Fame, if you're watching this, you know, like I said, this review comes from pure love, my man. I'm going to be critical because that's what people expect me to be, actually. And, you know, that's what I am, right? So this comes out of pure love. Now, let me just, you know, preface this by saying that criticism is good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in the business, you know, I write. It's hard for me to get criticism, honestly. Not, you know, like, you know how many times I'll submit stuff to people or whatever and I'll get no feedback. You know what I'm saying? Zero. I hate that shit. In fact, frankly, if somebody takes the time to actually listen to your shit, read your shit, whatever, and they give you, like, their honest opinion, even if it's, yo, that shit was trash, I didn't like it, and they don't go into whatever, even if there's, like, some sort of an honest reaction to your material, that shit is helpful. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? You might agree or disagree, and that's fine. It's up to you to be like, you know what? You're bugging. I'm not going to take that criticism. Or, yo, you on point. But the point is that criticism is necessary. That's how we improve our art. You know what I mean? So, on that note as well, I also want to point out that, you know, when I'm giving a criticism on this point, I'm going to be a slightly less harsh because Phamous is an independent artist. It's hard when you're independent. You don't have the machinery to make great shit. That's why, to a certain degree, I don't really have, like, an excuse or the reasons, like, when Nas drops a whack album, to me, it's, like, mind-boggling. Like, why? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you literally have thousands, you have all of hip-hop at your disposal. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason to have a whack beat. There's, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if, like, the stands really think about this shit. There's no reason the shit should be just like, Like, you know what I'm saying? You literally have all of hip-hop at your disposal. Nas can just tweet out, yo, like, you know, whoever. Pierre, I want to work with you, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you have everybody. And I know that at that point, it comes with its own challenges as well when you have everything at your disposal. But the fact of the matter is, you know, supposed to have, you know, like, you have quality control people, you have access, you have all kinds of shit. Phamous can't just get beats from anybody. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm sure he would love to get beats from certain people. Maybe he has a particular sound that he loves, but he don't have access to those people. So, you know, obviously the beats are not going to be as strong to a certain degree, and I'm going to be a little bit more understanding. But I'm still going to point it out, okay? All right, so let's start with Fame, because Fame has an album called Queen's Maid, and I've kind of taken some days to listen to it, okay? So I'm going to go track by track, Fame, all right? These are just my overall thoughts. We start off with a Teflon Don intro. Meh. You know, nothing special about that, honestly. Then we get into Vintage. Now, Phamous to me can rap. He has the actual talent for rap, I would say. Yes, when you listen to Phamous rap, you know this is a guy who's been rapping for a while. He didn't just start rapping. He didn't just, I'm just gonna rap because that's what's cool. No. He's clearly spent some time trying to figure out how to rap. Okay? So when I listen to Vintage, the first verse is cool, the chorus is cool. The beat's not that great, but it's whatever. But the rapping is cool. But Fame runs into this problem that I feel that cuts across a lot of his songs that I've heard, where he gets into these kind of like word salad moments where he just tosses too many words in a bar and the seamlessness disappears. And I don't like that shit. It becomes really messy. So for example, let me read this here, but he's got a line where he's like, and I think this is the second verse, he's like, just be happy these words exist, perfect with these verses, murking shit, the flow is murderous, it's like a home run derby the way these verses hit. I mean, first of all, aside from the word salad nature of how he delivered that shit, and it's just kind of sloppy to me, it's meaningless. Even what he's saying isn't, just be happy these words exist, perfect with these verses. It's this throwaway shit. It's like, okay, murking shit. I mean, again, the phrase murking shit is not special. I've heard that before. The flow is murderous. I mean, generic. You know what I'm saying? It's like a home run derby the way these verses hit. Now, using the word derby is a little bit unique. It's not something you hear all the time, but exactly not the word choice that I prefer personally. But at least there is some sort of unique word choice, But derby, there's a way it doesn't sound that cool. It's more like in a different tone. If it was like, funnier or something like that, it would work. But again, this is part of the rap science, right? Is diction. It's like choosing the right word, right? And the masters, the greats. What's that line when Pun used something blowfish? When he used the word blowfish in a rhyme, and you're like, because nobody would say that. You know what I'm saying? Pun would say some shit like that though, and that's what I'm saying. Diction can make you stand out. The words you choose. You know what I'm saying? Sheesh. You know what I'm saying? MF Doom says sheesh in a rhyme. Nobody says sheesh in a rhyme. You know what I'm saying? But again, you wouldn't say sheesh seriously. It's a joke word, right? But when Doom does it in a joking way, it's brilliant because it's also like, who would think about that shit? His whole thing is like this cartoon Scooby-Doo villain type shit. So when he says sheesh, it's like, that's exactly it, right? Because that's what you remember that line for. So diction. Anyway, again, I kind of thought that this song was meh, and to be honest with you, I thought a lot of the songs on this project were super meh. Wizard of Barz, meh. I Drove You, meh. I didn't like this beat at all. And I always stress beats. You know this about me, right? Beats. You gotta have great beats, because if you're not having great beats, you're just wasting verses on like, you might be having a good verse, you're just wasting that shit. Like, I don't know if y'all look at it that way, but that's how I look at it. It's like, damn, you wasted this verse on this fucking shit beat. Like, why? Like, you know what I'm saying? Get someone to remix that shit, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing sadder than that, man. When you hear a great verse and it's on a whack beat, you're just like, get a remix ASAP. Anyway, Queen's Night. This is one of the better songs on here. I like how it started. So speaking of beats, let me play the beginning. I like the first like 20 seconds. There's like a certain piano melody that comes in, I guess.
Just make a toast. Toast the life. Came up. We living a life. Word. Bunch of riches. Fly shit. Bitches. Ill bitches too. Providing for a family.
Right away I'm like, oh, okay. Where we going with this? I'm in. But then
yo, I came a long way from pushing
it's
the
cool.
mix to cooking up bricks. I let the waiters run the hookers on strips. Our rounds doing numbers now. We looking legit. Me and Young like the modern day sugar and quick. 12 trying to book us and shit.
I think this beat could have been better, but it's definitely one of the strong ones on the album. It's not the greatest beat you're ever gonna hear, but Anyway, I really liked how it started. I'm very particular about beats. I just feel like when the full beat kicked in, it was like a bit of a letdown. He does have a line in there. He's like, "My drip is different. I leak fashion." I thought that was kind of hard. GoodFella. This was boring. He has a song called NY Summer. The next one, this is alright. It's the Rising to the Top sample with the Mary Jane girls all night long. It's kind of, it's funny because it's played out at the same time, but it's also classic. The Rising to the Top is such a beautiful, like, classic record that it almost will never be played out. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't mind people sampling it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you're the 1,000th person to sample the shit, so it better be good. You know, part of the problem, again, you kind of see throughout this album, because he's talking about NY Summer. You know, Phamous clearly loved Queens. He's from the Bridge. He loves Queens. He loves NY. But it's like, other than that, who are you, Phamous? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's your personality like? What's your outlook on life like? Really, that makes you different from the next man. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what's your thing? You know what I'm saying? Because, like, you know, it's a lot of like, you've bought into this Queens mythology, this New York mythology. New York's the greatest city on earth. And look, listen, it's a great mythology. But you have to understand, it's a myth. It's a mythology. It means it's constructed. Okay, doesn't necessarily mean that's reality. Now, again, you're talking to somebody who's a big fan in New York. Used to live in New York. I love New York. Okay, so a lot of that shit is kind of real to a certain extent, but it is, again, at the end of the day, a mythology. And your job as a rapper is to create your own mythology, right? That reflects the reality of what people are going. You know, that's what makes rap dope. You know what I'm saying? I'll never forget having a conversation with my screenwriting professor. And she kind of, like, I guess, just discovered Wu-Tang or whatever. And I think she was born in New York, now I think about it. But that's beside the point. Because she was talking about how she marveled at how, like, you know, Wu-Tang had this whole mythology, like how they would rename the cities Medina, like different boroughs would have different names, and Shaolin and all that shit. To her, that shit's brilliant. And it's like, yeah, that shit is genius. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I'm saying? People that write, like myself, who know, we see good storytelling. We can tell when rappers have good storytelling and when they don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, anybody can really figure that shit out. You know what I'm saying? So this point of the matter is, the great rappers have storytelling, and it's storytelling about themselves, their neighborhood, who they are, and, you know, your rhymes, your bars should drip that, should have that element. You know what I'm saying? And part of what makes great storytelling, obviously, is uniqueness. It's like something, your own perspective, your analysis of shit. And there's not enough of that with Fame. Fame is just like, I'm the best. I'm ill. These niggas is trash. I'm from Queens. Queens is amazing. But it's like, yeah, but what else? You know what I mean? Let's move on. Ill Substance. Fuck a 9 to 5 of slavery. Protect your peace is the energy. This is like a Lil B record. It's funny, like, there's a way that Fame raps, and I've said, I might have told Fame this before, maybe he agreed or disagreed, but to me, my nigga, you like Lil B. You release a lot of music, you know, very, very in quality, and it's like you just gotta spit your shit, and that's how you communicate with the world. That's some Lil B shit. Now, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna release a ton of shit, you gotta study Lil B, because Lil B is the master of that releasing a ton of shit thing. You know what I'm saying? But one of the things that made Lil B better than you is that even though Lil B probably, like, you probably rap better technically than Lil B, but Lil B has much more heart. You know what I'm saying? And also, like, his fucking charisma game, he has more charisma than you, respectfully. And also more imagination. And that's why he was able to pick out these beats and change the game sonically, because he was rhyming on shit that niggas weren't even up on. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta do something. You have to have, like, something that really makes you stand out. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's something I would keep in mind. If you're gonna just be that cat that, like, walks into a booth almost, that's just recording a ton of shit and you're always spitting or whatever, make sure that at least you're doing something that's unique. Then start getting, like, weirder beats and shit and different shit that makes people go, oh, that's fucking weird beat. Like, but that's crazy. You can't just rhyme over old shit because it's old, it's boring. Anyway, Philosophy. Again, we're like halfway through the album. I'm still not sure who Phamous is as a person, you know, I guess you might deal some drugs here on the side, whatever. But other than that, like, again, who are you? What makes you special? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure there's a lot of niggas in QB that do, you know, illegal shit here and there, whatever. But, again, you know what I'm saying? We've heard that. Like, you know what I'm saying? What's your take? I did like one part of the song, those bars where, you know, he's like, baby mom's lost me, I let her mingle, flew to Jamaica on a girls trip, came back single, misguided, mama should have told her how kings move. And there was a way that you kind of misguided, mama should have taught her how kings move. There was a way you kind of, like, when you put that in, it was a different rhyme pattern than I expected, but it worked. You know what I'm saying? I like that. I thought it was pretty slick. I always like niggas that do shit like that, but it's on beat and it's slick and it makes sense and it doesn't, you know, You notice it, but it's like, oh, that's dope the way they did that. You know what I'm saying? And smooth. Anyway, so moving on. Sin City. This is a generic, New York's got a lot of crime. It's like generic Gotham City crime piano beat. I've heard this a million times, man. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, New York State of Mind, Part 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very common thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna do it, just make it dope. Because this beat sounds like some shit out of, like, 1995, but not in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Queen's Made. The album title now has a song. So, Fame rhymes over The World Is Yours. Not a fan of this, obviously, because you know how I feel about people doing remix. The World Is Yours is too classic. It is way too known. I do not like when people rhyme over old shit, because it's like, you're not going to kill it more than Nas did. Fuck out of here. Okay? It's boring. Like, if the moment I start hearing it, it's similar, I'm just like, I want to stop what I'm doing. I want to stop listening to your shit, and I want to go hear The World Is Yours. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you do a flip of, if you're going to do something recognizable like that, you got to flip it in a way that's completely different, where I can go, oh, that's dope how you flipped it. It's a reference to The World Is Yours, but it's completely different. And now I want to listen to it more, because I'm like so curious to see how different you went at it, but it's still fly. Here's a perfect example of what I mean. Stella Mighty has this record. If Nas, right? See, different feel entirely from The World Is Yours. And the way it starts is actually really cool too, because it's bare bones. You're nodding, you're moving, but you're like, where's this going, right? What's the melody? Right? Hey! You know it's The World Is Yours. Then you're like, oh, this is cool. I'm back now. Back down. Back down. Back now. Now, this guy, to me, not the greatest rapper necessarily, I'm going to be honest with you. But Fame, something like that, you could rock, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have the talent for it. You could rock a beat like that. But that's what I'm saying. If you get your producers to do some shit like that, like, freak it different. Because otherwise, what's the point? You know what I mean? Locked Up. Trading War Stories. Oh, my God. Again, real person music, right? Lil B did this beat, too. I love this beat, man. Who doesn't? It's a fucking beautiful beat. It's sexy, right? It just has that like feel of like, yo, I gotta say what's on my mind. In fact, I think I might just fucking rock it right now. Oh my God. Oh my God, beautiful shit, right? Fame didn't really do anything special on this beat, in my opinion. I think Lil B did a much better job. But that's, it's interesting. We talk about Lil B. Like, when Lil B was rapping on Trading War Stories, again, I don't know if you got the idea from Lil B, funny enough, Fame, but when Lil B did it, it was like, oh, it was surprising, because it's not something that people typically do. People don't typically rap on Trading War Stories, you know what I mean? Even though it's a fire-ass beat, and that's my point. Like, if you're gonna do something that's classic, pick a classic that people don't even, like, it's classic, but people don't really know about it. You're not going to rhyme on Shook Ones, right? That's boring. You're not going to rhyme on Survival of the Fittest. That's corny. But if you rhyme on something like, let's say, what's a beat that I think is really dope that people don't, maybe even Up North Trip, right? We all love that record, but like people don't really know about it like that. But if you rhyme on Up North Trip, I'm like, oh, I wonder what your fucking take is on this shit, because I don't really hear niggas freestyling on that shit. You know what I mean? So, moving on. Now, this is what's interesting about this project. We're getting to the last 3 songs on this project. I don't know what happened, Fame, but these last 3 songs are actually the best songs on the project. I don't know if that was by design, how it was recorded. These were the first 3 recorded or the last 3 recorded. I don't know how that worked. But we get into a song called OnlyFans, okay? This is a funny record. I think this is overall the best song on the entire project, okay? Even though, funny enough, I don't agree with almost anything Fame says on this shit. And I do think the song is misogynistic. I'm going to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? So, Fame is basically talking about he's not going to wife some bitch that's like on a lot of bitches think he's overly chauvinistic. Get off his dick if that's the case. Rats want to waste, more cats to chase, dogs. Anyway, my doom heads know. So Fame was talking about how he's not gonna wife some chick that's like on OnlyFans, right? And you know what's interesting? This is the first time to me where Fame's personality actually shines through. This is something clearly a topic that he's very passionate about, right? The bars are very clear. The bars, you can see there's care that went into the bars. There's none of this word salad shit where he's trying to do full flows and blah, blah. It's very like point A, point B, you know what I'm saying? And it's very well constructed in terms of the rhymes. The beat's kind of like, to me, whatever. But again, I think this is actually the best song. So Fame, you know, if you're gonna like look at this song as a reference, I would say in terms of not necessarily how you should approach every song, but in terms of what I mean. Like, you know, for those who listen to it, you'll see it's a lot cleaner. Like the thoughts very, if one thought follows another type of thing, and it's the best construction I've heard. Now, in subject matter, this is where I disagree with Fame very, very much so on this, because he says some things here where he's like, and I think rappers got to be very careful about this, right? Because he's talking about, you know, girls selling sex, right? Essentially, right? And you know, men can be very much like, oh, why are bitches doing this? Why are you selling sex? Like, I don't like that shit. But it's like, look, listen, man. Like, I guess I look at this shit differently because personally, I'll take a whore over a freaking drug deal any day of the fucking week. Because you're out here talking about, yo, I'm not gonna wife you, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, get your life right, like your body's polluted, all this shit. But it's like, yo, listen, like, whores, if we're gonna be like using the word here, like, all they're doing is helping dudes bust a fucking nut. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how's that harming anybody, really? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, first of all, it's a good thing. And secondly, like, who gives a shit? You're actually out here selling drugs and harming the community, destroying the community, right? Which is leading to way much more iller effects. But you're going to be on the pedestal talking about how women shouldn't be selling their bodies? Like, get the fuck out of here. This girl probably don't want you to wife her anyway. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is what I thought was kind of funny. Because he's like, yo, I'm not going to wife you. But it's like, if I was a freaking girl on OnlyFans, I'd be like, nigga, I ain't even trying to wife you. You a struggling rapper, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, two-time, you know what I'm saying, corner hustler, nobody. You know what I mean? Like, what you gonna tell me about my life? You know what I'm saying? Get the fuck out of here. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Now, again, when you make tracks like this, you gotta think, you know what I'm saying? You gotta be like, okay, what's the other side of this shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why sometimes when men make certain records where they're dissing chicks, and like, for example, you look at a song like Chicken Head that Project Pat did, that's dope because he's dissing the chick, and the things he's saying is real, right? It's real. But then Lashad is also like responding with her own thing about how guys are fucked up. You kind of want that balance. That's what makes for great records. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not saying that Fame should have had somebody else respond directly. That's not really my point. My point is, again, when you rapping, just think about what you're saying. That's all it is, right? And that's all. But I do like how Fame constructed his thoughts, and like I said, I don't have to agree with the nigga. You know what I'm saying? Just like you don't have to agree with him, and he doesn't have to agree with me. But I can see the construction. I can see the thought. And I'm saying keep that thought, but hopefully, try to expand your subject matter also as well, right? Because, you know, it's interesting. It's like the one time like your personality shines through. It's like on a song that I would argue is like very woman hating. You know what I'm saying, to a certain degree. And it's like, you know, you gotta have more things, man, that you're passionate about. Can't just be about bitches on OnlyFans. You know what I mean? You know, it's interesting because I've been watching, you know, I watched some of that Saigon Havoc podcast thing on Vlad. It was fucking boring. Saigon is super boring. Like, you know, when you see this guy in real life, or I don't know him in real life, but when you see him like talking, it's boring to me. That's how you know a substandard rapper. There's no charisma. Charisma is one of the most important things a rapper brings to the table. I've said this a million times. Vocal charisma. If you don't got it, you don't got it. You know what I'm saying? And Saigon is a boring dude. You know what I'm saying? But one of the things I also don't like about Saigon is Saigon to me is a complete hypocrite in terms of how he portrays himself. Now, I don't know the dude personally, but the shit he says is weird to me. Because even in that interview when he was talking with Havoc, He's talking about, oh, you know, these girls out here. He's talking about Ice Spice. What do we know about Ice Spice? She didn't show her ass. And it's like, nigga, why are we even talking about Ice Spice? You know what I'm saying? Like, you see, you're the kind of nigga that's like on OnlyFans, like looking for these types of chicks, and you're trying to get at these girls, and then when you can't, or even when you do get at them, you hit it, and then you want to like criticize them. It's like that's a hypocrite move, man. I ain't got time for that shit. You don't see me looking at OnlyFans, bitch. I don't even give a fuck. When was the last time I mentioned Ice Spice? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know what it is with her. I see, okay, all right, this girl, she can't rap for shit, whatever. She's showing her ass, whatever. Who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not mad at it. I know that there's an audience for it. It's not, I mean, is it low grade art? Yeah. But again, like, don't focus on that shit. You know what I'm saying? If you really are here trying to move the minds, you know that that's gutter shit. You don't even have to worry about that. But if you're always focusing on gutter shit and then complaining, it's like, well, but do you seek this shit out? Do you secretly like this shit? You know what I mean? That's the problem. So, regarding OnlyFans, I just want to talk a little more about that. Like I said, I don't really like when men are overly critical. I mean, again, anyone can be critical. I don't mind having an opinion. We all have our opinion on the various sexes and such. So that's fine with me. But I just think that you sometimes get into misogynistic territory and contradictory territory. And you know me, I don't really like hypocrites. That's just my thing. You know, I'm not really a big, hypocrite fan. Yeah. And I do think that to a certain extent, the one thing I do agree with is, I don't know how to describe it. It's not necessarily saying the over-sexualization of black women necessarily, or women in general, but I do think that it's unrelated. No, maybe the whole like with girls, how you see certain sisters. I don't know if it's only sisters that do this, but anyways, you know how like they always showing their ass in pictures and stuff like that. Like that would be like me or somebody always, showing their muscles in every photo that they do. Do you know how played out that would be? Like, eventually you're going to be like, come on. Like, is there anything else you got going on? So, I mean, but again, to what Phamous is saying about the OnlyFans thing, like I said, I think it's a little bit unfair. Because look, listen, at the end of the day, black folk are at the bottom of the economic ladder. So like if they're at the bottom of the economic ladder, they're going to have to do illegal or things that disrespect their nature. Like the nature of capitalism is that when you don't have the skills and you're not necessarily allowed to compete, or you can't compete in more skilled labor, intellectual labor, you have to sell your body on some level. You know what I'm saying? And so you're either selling it by labor, right? I'm a laborer. I understand that shit. You're either selling your labor like literally, or you're literally selling your body. So you're using it to do labor tasks or, sexual tasks or whatever, right? So I don't necessarily knock ladies for doing that stuff, because ultimately they have very little options in the grand scheme of things, especially sisters. You know what I'm saying? But like all things, of course, as a human being, you have your own, you can make your own decisions about life and things like that. So, it is what it is. You reap what you sow, right? So, moving on. And I think I'll play a little instrumental. Okay. A whole vibe. This is one of the better songs on here again. It's kind of ultimately it's like this sort of Mobb Deep mythology about saving rap. But again, like my criticisms, I don't know exactly what you're saving rap from. You know what I'm saying? Or not even that. I know what you're saving rap from, but I don't know how you specifically are saving rap. Like with rap skills, I guess, but that's not really enough. You know what I'm saying? What's going to save rap is actual creativity, like real creativity. Somebody who's daring enough to do something different, right? Not what we've seen before. You know what I'm saying? Or something we've seen before, but done in a very different way that reminds us of what was great before. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? You take something that exists, but you make it even better. So if you're not hitting that bar, how are you saving rap really? And then The Shining at the end, like I said, slightly better. One of the better beats, but I don't remember anything about the song. So ultimately, my criticisms come down to two things, right? So for Phamous, get better beats for sure. Your beats tell you who you are, right? Certain things about a production are specific to certain artists. Look back on the great artists that you know. You know what I'm saying? The best beats that Nas rhymed on are for Nas, right? Like they speak to who Nas is. Busta Rhymes has certain beats that speak to who he is, right? You know, that Wuha beat is really only a Busta Rhymes type of beat. You know what I'm saying? Only really Busta Rhymes or ODB or someone of that wild, kind of unhinged but humorous vibe could have rocked that. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, your beats show us who you are. So you have to be very, very diligent about picking beats that speak to who you are. And of course, attractive, make them, you know, really dope. So number one, get better beats. The number two, I would say, with Phamous is just show us more about who you are. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, if there isn't much about you that has, you don't have much of a personality, find some personality. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm just literally saying, find something about you. It can't just be that you're vocal about, you know, baby mamas or, you know, women sucking or whatever, because that's not really a personality. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be really, it's usually connected to something that you love, right? And it also can't be hip hop. It's got to be outside of that. You know what I'm saying? So something about you that we can gravitate and be like, that's Phamous. Like the way that Phamous, that kind of beat is a Phamous beat. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how Phamous looks at the world. This is his perspective on the world. And that beat fits that. Okay? So once you find that out, then flex a bit of that personality. Reveal more about yourself. And I'm not talking about generic bars about, you know, my mom was this, I grew up and blah, blah. I don't want to hear all that. Like, that's kind of boring. Unless you can make it interesting. But just simple things. Like, I don't know, whatever your hobbies are, just something. Like, put more personality, make it part of your mythology. So those would be my, you know, two major recommendations. And then, of course, the third one is just make sure the flow is tight. You know what I'm saying? On OnlyFans, it was tight. It fit. It never took me out of the song. But in a lot of the songs that you've done previously, it took me out. Like, there were times when I was like, you know, I don't like that feeling, okay? Shout out to Fame, man. Respect.